Under the neon at an Austin concert, my girlfriend climbed onto her best friend Evan's shoulders and laughed. "You're taller. Way better than my boyfriend." The section roared. I didn't yell. I didn't shove. I just felt the volume drain out of a world like someone hit mute on 10,000 people, and clarity snapped into place. My name's Jack. I own a small gym. I believe in discipline, boundaries, and keeping drama outside my front door. That night, drama jumped the fence, waved from 6 feet in air, and asked me to clap for it. So I did the one thing nobody expected. I smiled, turned my back on the stage, and walked away. No scene, no warning, just the clean break of a man who finally sees what's in front of him. Here's what came next: the deadbolt, the packed suitcases, doorbell camera, and a knock that changed everything. If you've ever wondered what enough feels like, start the clock now. I'm Jack Miller, 33, ex-Marine. I run a small, no-frills gym in South Austin where the chalk is real and the mirrors don't lie. My mornings start before the sun with black coffee and a checklist I actually finish. I like simple things that stay earned. A clean deadlift, a paid-off truck, neighbors who wave back. People call it boring. I call it quiet. After the service, I promised myself I'd keep drama outside my front door. The Marines taught me that discipline doesn't solve every problem, but it keeps the small ones from becoming big ones. When you've seen life go sideways at full speed, you learn to love routine. It's not about being hard, it's about being steady. That steadiness kept me grounded through loss, bills, and the slow climb of starting a business from nothing. Then I met someone who could light up a room and knock out the power to my careful, quiet life. And that's how Sophie walked in. I met Sophie at a friend's backyard barbecue. Hot night, cicadas screaming, kids chasing a football through sprinklers. She wore a sundress and knew everyone's name after 5 minutes. I liked that she wasn't afraid to laugh loud or talk with her hands. I'm not the guy who works a crowd, I'm the guy who grills the brats and makes sure the cooler has ice. She pulled me into the noise like I belonged there. We talked about music, Texas road trips, and that little taco stand on South Lamar that only takes cash. She teased me for counting my napkins before I eat. I teased her for never having a plan. Opposites attract isn't science, but that night it felt close enough. When I walked her to her car, she said, "You're steady. I need steady." I believed her. I wanted to. The first months felt like a new song on repeat, until I started hearing the skipped beats underneath. The first 12 months were easy. We found a rhythm. I'd train my clients early. She'd swing by after work with takeout and stories. We did Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, Friday nights at a dive bar with a decent jukebox. She loved how I kept my word. I loved how she made ordinary food taste better just by telling a story while we ate. We took a weekend trip to the hill country, got lost on purpose, split a slice of pecan pie at a diner that still had a rotary phone on the wall. She said I made her feel safe. I believed it was mutual. My friends liked her. My mom liked her more than she liked most, which should have been a sign to slow down, not speed up. I missed that caution flag because joy has a way of covering warning lights. Then little differences, cute at first, started picking up weight. The kind you don't notice until your back complains. She called me Mr. Schedule. I called her the wild card, and we laughed like balance was permanent. But habits are like gravity. You don't see them until you trip. I like grocery lists and the same brand of coffee. She likes midnight pizza and last-minute plans. I save for tires before they go bald. She buys concert tickets before rent is due. I'm not judging. Okay, I was judging, but I tried to keep it quiet. We compromised. I loosened the routine sometimes. She penciled in some structure. It worked, mostly. What didn't was the way she fed on attention. Not just mine. Everyone's. I get it. Some people draw energy from crowds the way I draw energy from quiet, but attention is a currency, and I started to feel overdrafted. The jokes about boring Jack got bigger laughs. Small thing? Sure. Small things grow. I told myself differences make a couple interesting, right up until a friend started making them dangerous. Evan showed up like a sequel nobody asked for. Her best friend, she said, and maybe he was. He knew the playlists she liked in high school, the nicknames from college, the bartenders who poured her heavy. He was loud in the way men get loud when they're auditioning. Touchy too, arm around the shoulder, hand on the small of her back when there was no reason to guide her anywhere. I noticed. Men notice. We're not blind. We're polite. Until we're not. She said, "It's harmless. He's always been like this." Harmless is a big word to place on a small boundary. I tried to meet him halfway. Firm handshake, eye contact, a joke to keep it civil. Evan smirked like the joke was me. Maybe I was. I told myself to be generous, to trust her history. Trust is earned, but it's also maintained. What I saw next wasn't a crime, but it was a pattern. And patterns write endings. It started with late-night texts, inside jokes that didn't include me. Then Saturdays when we had plans, but she forgot he'd asked her to swing by a friend's party. She'd say, "You're invited," 10 minutes before leaving, like I could teleport. At a bar one night, he leaned in to tell her something private, his breath grazing her ear. She laughed and put her hand on his chest to steady herself. My drink suddenly tasted like metal. I didn't make a scene. I asked her later, in a quiet kitchen, why we needed a third wheel to have fun. She said I was being jealous, old-fashioned, controlling, the word people use now when you ask for respect. I reminded her I don't check her phone, track her car, or tell her what to wear. I asked for a simple fence. Keep your friendship, lose the touching, and the late-night whispering. She rolled her eyes like fences were for farms, right up until I laid down a line. I asked Evan to grab a coffee, neutral ground. We sat outside where the traffic noise could keep two men honest. I told him straight, "I'm with Sophie. I respect your history. Respect ours. No threats. No chest beating. Just a boundary." He smiled with that sideways shrug men use when they're pretending not to hear you. "She's my best friend," he said, like a spell that cancels accountability. I said, "Best friends don't make boyfriends into props." He laughed. That was the tell. When another man laughs at your boundary, he's not confused. He's competing. I stood, said we were done here, and left the check with a few extra bucks. Back home, I told Sophie what I'd said. She cried, said I blindsided him, said I embarrassed her. I reminded her I met him alone to keep it small. She asked for compromise. I gave it once. The next move, I told her, had to be hers. That night, I laid it out clean. "I won't play games," I said. "I won't share a relationship with an audience." She said Evan was family. I said families learn boundaries. I wasn't asking her to cut him off. I was asking her to stop feeding the attention loop that kept him orbiting us. I told her the late-night texts had to end, the hands had to go, and our dates needed to be ours. She called me rigid. I said, "Call it what you want, but call me when you're ready to choose respect." That word sat between us like a heavy bag waiting to be hit. She left. I let her. Hardest part was not sending a follow-up text to soften it. In the Marines, hesitation can get you hurt. In love, it gets you played. She came back 2 days later with puffy eyes and promises. For a while, it felt like we'd righted the ship, until the next wave hit. For a stretch, it worked. The late-night messages stopped. Evan faded to the edges, or maybe he just hid better. We cooked at home, watched a game without side commentary, and remembered what quiet felt like. I let my shoulders drop. I slept better. She kissed me longer. We took a photo at the Barton Springs pool and looked like people who'd figured it out. My buddies said, "Looks good, man." I said, "It is." I wanted that sentence to be true enough to hold. The concert tickets were my idea. Her favorite band. Good seats. A night I couldn't afford when I was younger. I told myself it would be our reset button. The proof that the hard talk worked. I didn't see the signs I should have seen. The sudden coincidence. The tight smile when I asked who was going. The way she dressed like the audience mattered more than the music. I thought I was buying us a memory. I was buying clarity. The quiet didn't break with a shout. It cracked with small things. A buzz at 12:41 a.m. that lit the room like a siren. You up? From a name I'd hoped would fade. A laugh she saved for her phone. Not for me. Older guys tell you this is how trouble comes back. Sideways, casual, dressed like coincidence. I tried to ignore it the way you ignore a check engine light 2 weeks before payday. She said it was nothing, that group chats get loud at night. But the group sounded a lot like one person. Breakfast got shorter. Her makeup got bolder for errands. I found myself wiping the same clean counter just to do something with my hands. I wasn't angry yet. I was embarrassed. That's the word men don't use. Embarrassed to feel like a guest in my own evening. I told myself to wait for proof. Proof came anyway. Always does. and it chose a bar with bright lights and no place to hide. We met friends at a neighborhood bar, the kind with wood paneling and a dartboard that's seen better nights. Country on the speakers, ball game muted on TV. Evan walked in like the sequel again. Too loud, too familiar. He hugged her longer than you hug a sister, then grinned at me like we shared a joke. We didn't. He tossed a line the older guys will recognize. Relax, man, we're just playing. That's the shield people use when they're not ready to own the hit. He clinked her glass, called me coach, and asked if I still used little 5-pound dumbbells. The table laughed. That's when embarrassment tried to turn into heat. I finished my water. I kept my seat. You don't wrestle pigs in public. Everyone gets muddy, and the pig likes it. Sophie saw my jaw and called me sensitive. Sensitive. I swallowed the word like a nail. I paid our tab. I told her we'd talk at home. She rolled her eyes. And the night got longer. If you've ever stood in your own kitchen and felt like a stranger, you know the weight of fluorescent light on a bad night. She said I was jealous. I said I was disrespected. Those aren't the same argument. I walked her through the late texts, the hands, the jokes with my name on them. She said, that's how we are, like tradition cancels boundaries. I'm not great with speeches, but the Marines taught me clarity. I told her love without respect turns into a costume, looks right from 10 feet, falls apart up close. She called me controlling. I asked her to define control. Silences got longer between us than the sentences. She grabbed her purse, said she needed air, and the door answered for both of us. I cleaned dishes that were already clean. I'm a fixer. Most men my age are, but you can't tighten bolts on something that wants to come loose. Around midnight, I stopped checking the door. That was my first surrender. I couldn't sleep, so I did what I do. Put on my old field jacket and walked the block. The fabric carries sand and memory. In the service, you learn that principles are what you return to when noise gets loud. Respect, accountability, clear lines. No one salutes a crooked standard. Men in my age bracket know the talk. Mortgages, aging parents, knees that bark in cold weather. But there's another talk we skip, how dignity keeps a house standing. I thought of my father, who fixed everything he could and walked away from what he couldn't without breaking more. He used to say, make your decision in daylight, son, then carry it through the night. I came home, wrote 3 words on a sticky note, no more games, and put it on the fridge where only I would see it. Not a threat, a promise to myself. The sun finally came up on a quieter kitchen. Then the door opened. She came back with something I didn't expect. She returned at 9, eyes swollen, voice soft, the walk-in calm after a storm. She said I was right. She said the text would stop. She said Evan didn't mean anything and never had. Older men know this script, the apology written in fog, beautiful until breath fades. But I wanted to believe the way you want to believe a good weather report on the day of your kid's game. I listened. I asked for specifics. No late-night texting, no private whispers, no touch beyond what you do in church. She agreed, nodding hard like a student who wants an A. I held her while the coffee went cold. Forgiveness isn't cheap, but it's cheaper than resentment. And I didn't want to carry a debt. We spent a Saturday doing couple stuff. Groceries, car wash, a movie we barely watched. For a while, the house breathed again. I took down the sticky note, not because I forgot, because I hoped I wouldn't need it. Hope is good. Blind hope is expensive. When life tilts, I go lift. Iron tells the truth. It doesn't care about your mood, your pride, or your stories. It moves if you move it. That Monday, I loaded the bar with something heavy and let the music stay low. My clients came in. Teachers, a retired lineman, a guy nursing a new hip. We talk reps and grandkids, breath and blood pressure. The older ones give the best advice without using the word advice. Hold your form, one of them said, watching me deadlift. He meant more than the bar. I nodded and chalked up again. Between sessions, I checked my phone less. That felt like progress. She texted me about dinner plans, sent a photo of her lunch, told me she missed me. It looked like care. It may have been. By Friday, my shoulders didn't live up around my ears anymore. I thought, maybe we turned the corner. Then I found 2 concert tickets I didn't buy, mine and hers. A gift, she said. A test, I thought. She said it was her favorite band, a rare tour, good seats. I pictured the old us, 2 people wrapped in one song, not 3 people wrapped in attention. I wanted that night. I said yes. I even rearranged Saturday clients. which I don't do lightly when rent and payroll live close to the edge some months. We planned outfits like teenagers. She lit up the way people do when a story is forming. I tried not to read into it, but older men learned to scan who's going, how we're getting there, what time we're leaving. She kept it breezy. "Just us," she said, and kissed me like punctuation. I took that sentence as proof. I shouldn't have. The morning of, she was giddy and scattered, new perfume, extra time in front of the mirror, 2 phones on the counter, charging. I told myself to enjoy the gift I'd asked for months ago, a simple night with the woman I chose. I didn't know it would become the night that chose me. 2 days before the show, an old pattern tapped on the glass. She laughed at a text and turned the screen down. It could have been anyone. I let it slide like you let slide a small spill when company's coming. But I noticed the energy, the kind of buzz a room gets before a toast. Pride said, "Don't be that guy." Experience said, "Pay attention." I split the difference. I asked who was excited to see the band. "Everyone," she said, then corrected, "I mean, the whole city." Cute dodge. I smiled, stored it, and focused on coaching a 6 p.m. class through farmer carries and goodbye handshakes. That night, we ate leftovers on the couch. She scrolled houseplants and handbags, or at least that's what I told myself. I slept fine, but not deep, the kind of sleep where your ears stay on. In the morning, she set her phone face up like a trophy. Clean pages, maybe clean truth. I wanted to believe that. Then the venue posted a "See you there" story, and a familiar name popped up in the feed. I saw Evan is going with a little fire emoji, like the world needed his temperature. I didn't mention it. I wanted her to. She didn't. Men my age know that silence can be information. At dinner, I asked who from her circle would be there. She said it was a big city. Odds are we'd see people. True, but incomplete. I kept my tone level. "Is Evan one of those people?" Her fork paused. "I can't control who buys tickets, Jack." Also true. Also not the question. The table felt smaller. I said, "I need the night to be ours." She said, "Then don't look for problems." That's when I understood. Boundaries to her sounded like predictions to me. After we ate, I took a walk past porches and flags, a neighborhood where folks still wave. I decided, again, to keep my word to myself. If the line got crossed in daylight, I'd act in daylight. No speeches, no scenes, just action. The clock on the wall sounded louder. The day of the concert felt like a test I hadn't agreed to take. I shaved, put on a shirt that fits, checked the locks twice out of habit. She came out in a dress that drew cameras. I told her she looked beautiful, and meant it. The drive downtown was all orange sky and pickup trucks merging like polite dancers. We didn't say much. Married folks, longtime couples, men who've lived a few chapters. You know that quiet, kind, careful, strategic. We parked, walked under neon, past a food truck that smelled like every Friday night you ever loved. At the gate, she squeezed my hand. For a second, it felt like the past. Then, over her shoulder, I saw a grin I'd seen before. Evan, tickets up, chin high, like a man who trusts his audience. Sophie said, "Oh, crazy coincidence." The music hadn't started, but the show had. I took one breath and set my jaw. Reset buttons are lies. What came next wouldn't be a restart. It would be a conclusion. I treated concert day like game day. Early workout, light breakfast, gas in the truck, seats double-checked. If you're over 30, you know peace starts with planning. I told myself this was a gift to both of us. Music, a city night, no loose ends. She floated through the apartment, humming the chorus like a promise. I packed a small bottle of water and a hoodie in case the air turned cool after midnight. She laughed at the hoodie. I laughed with her. On the drive, I kept the radio low and the talk easy. Favorite songs, old shows we'd missed when money was tight. That one time we got rained out and didn't care. Her smile was there, but a notch too bright, like stage lights instead of porch lights. I ignored that. Roads were clear, skyline glowing, parking spot closer than luck should allow. I told myself, take the gift. Then we walked toward the gate, and the gift started feeling wrapped by someone else. Downtown Austin knows how to sell a night. Food trucks steaming, guitar riffs from a side stage, couples drifting like they had all weekend to get where they were going. We joined the river of people funneling toward the venue, wristbands on, security quick, a warm breeze carrying the smell of brisket and beer. She squeezed my hand and pointed at a merch tent like a kid at a county fair. I bought her a shirt 2 sizes up, the kind you sleep in. We laughed about the price and the nostalgia tax. We found our section. Good sightline, not too jammed. The opener came on, tight 3-song set that got the crowd bouncing but left room to breathe. For a few minutes, I felt the old rhythm, her shoulder against mine, my arm around her waist, our songbook between us. Then she started scanning faces like she was waiting on a cue. I told myself maybe she was just people watching. The cue arrived anyway, wearing a smirk. Evan materialized the way trouble does, 5 feet away, acting surprised the way actors do. "No way," he said, like the city only had one venue. He hugged Sophie first, long enough to make strangers look away, then turned to me with that frat house grin that ages badly at 30. "Crazy coincidence," she said, eyes too wide. Men my age know the word coincidence can mean plan with no paper trail. I kept my face still. "Enjoy the show," I told him, and turned my body back toward the stage, half message, half prayer. He stayed close, planted like a flag. She started catching him up on our week like I wasn't there to hear it. He laughed on cue. When people choreograph a scene, they forget how obvious it looks from 10 inches away. The opener thanked the crowd and the lights shifted. My chest felt tight, not from anger, from prediction. I laced my fingers with hers. She let me, but her eyes were already on his shoulders. "Relax, baby, it's random," she said, the same tone you use when a dog barks at a shadow. I nodded like I bought it. I didn't. Evan leaned in, asked what songs she wanted, then shouted how the headliner always does 2 encores, if the crowd is hot. He was close enough that his breath hit her ear. She shivered and called it the breeze. I counted to 10 twice and watched the crew switch guitars. People around us were pairing off, couples negotiating space, strangers trading spots so shorter fans could see. I told Sophie if the crowd packed in, we could slide left for a better sightline. Or I could just get higher, she joked, eyes flicking at Evan like a stage direction. "Coincidence," I said, tasting the word. My phone buzzed. No emergency, just a buddy asking for score updates on the game. I put the phone away. I wasn't missing the play that mattered. Then the stage went dark. The band hit, and the crowd surged. If you've been in a real crowd, you know the wave. It doesn't ask. It carries. Guitars exploded. Thousands of bodies leaned forward like someone pulled a string. I boxed out gently, created a pocket so Sophie wouldn't get jostled. For a minute, it worked. Then a chant rose for the big single, and everything ratcheted up a notch. Phones in the air, elbows higher, strangers louder. "I can't see," she yelled, tapping my chest like I controlled 6,000 people's height. I suggested the side aisle. She pouted like I'd said, "Go home." Evan turned, all helpful, all timing. "Hop up," he shouted, hands already on his knees, crouching like a baseline move he'd practiced in a mirror. I felt the air leave my lungs, not from shock, from confirmation. If you're over 30, you've seen this play drawn on a napkin. The problem, the solution, the applause. I shook my head once. "We'll slide left," I said. She looked at me like I'd failed a test. Then she chose her grading curve. She climbed before I could reframe the moment. Knee to his shoulder, heel digging, hands on his head like a crown. The crowd around us cheered the way crowds cheer anything tall and loud. My vision narrowed the way it does when a bar fight brews. Edges blur, center sharpens. She rose into the lights, hair flying, arms out, queen for a chorus. Evan's hands locked around her calves like possession, not support. I stood still in a moving room. I could have reached up, could have said, "Get down," could have made a scene. Men learn, sometimes too late, that not all rescues are rescues. She looked down and saw me, saw I wasn't flailing, wasn't pleading. Something in her smiled bigger, like my calm was gasoline. The band hit the hook. The stadium answered. She cupped her hands like a megaphone. I knew a line was coming, one she'd write in permanent ink on the night. She didn't disappoint. The words were simple. The damage was not. "You're taller. Way better than my boyfriend," she shouted, performing the sentence more than speaking it. The section around us erupted. High fives, laughter so loud the vowels bent. Evan tilted his head so she could ride the spotlight a second longer. I didn't hear the next chord. The world did that thing where it falls quiet for one person, not dramatic, surgical. All the what-ifs, all the maybe she didn't mean it's evaporated. I wasn't humiliated. I was informed. There's a difference. Older men know it when it arrives, the moment a choice becomes a fact. I felt my shoulders drop, like I'd set down a duffel I'd carried too far. I smiled. Not for them, for me. Then I stepped back half a pace and looked at the aisle. People moved without me asking. Maybe they saw it on my face. Maybe men recognize exits in each other. She kept playing to her crowd, unaware the show had just lost its only paying audience that mattered to me. I didn't shove. I didn't speak. I turned. Someone clapped my shoulder in a "you good" way. I nodded. The aisle opened like it had been waiting on me to use it. If you've ever left a place you thought you needed, you know that first breath in open air. It tastes like a new room in your own lungs. Security didn't stop me. No one asked for a wristband. Outside, the night was cooler than it looked from inside. Always is. I heard the muffled chorus through concrete and distance. The city felt normal again. Cars idling, laughter from a patio, a siren far enough away to be someone else's problem. I walked toward the streetlights without checking my phone. When you're done, you're done. The decision makes its own gravity. A rideshare rolled up right when I raised my hand. The driver asked how the show was. "Loud," I said. He laughed. I didn't. I watched the venue get smaller in the mirror until it was just neon. The car smelled like pine and last week's coffee. The driver talked about his kid learning to ride a bike in a church parking lot. I listened like a man being reintroduced to ordinary life. My phone buzzed twice. Friends at the show. A blurry video already making the rounds. I flipped it face down. The driver asked if he should avoid traffic on 5th. "Take the long way," I said. He nodded like he understood more than routing. We passed a couple arguing on a corner, hands slicing the air. We passed a man walking alone with a pizza box tucked like a football, proud and practical. I thought about how dignity looks small in the moment and big in the replay. I tipped well. He told me to have a good night with the kind of sincerity you get from strangers who don't need your story. At my building, the night air felt honest. I unlocked the door to a quiet that, for the first time in months, didn't feel empty. Inside, I didn't pace. I moved with the calm you get after a storm breaks the way the radar said it would. I poured water, took a breath, and made a list. Something men do when feelings refuse to file themselves. Keys on the counter, deadbolt set, trash out, valises from the closet. I wasn't angry packing. I was restoring order. If you've ever rebuilt a garage shelf after it collapsed, you know the rhythm. Piece by piece, no drama, no shortcuts. I folded her clothes into the suitcases she'd bragged about. I lined them by the door like a row of period marks. The phone lit the room with calls I didn't take. When I finally sat, the couch felt like a bench after a winning drive. Quiet. Earned. Enough. The music in my head wasn't from the concert. It was the click of each boundary sliding into place. Tomorrow would bring noise. Tonight, I had certainty. The fall didn't end with her line. It ended with mine. I'm done. I didn't check over my shoulder. People think strength is in the stare down. Sometimes it's in refusing to turn around. The concrete stairs outside the venue felt solid in a way the floor inside didn't. I counted steps because counting keeps a man honest. On the sidewalk, I slipped past a couple taking selfies and a dad hoisting his sleepy kid like a sack of flour. Ordinary life right where I left it. I flagged a rideshare and the driver's eyes flicked to my wristband, then to my face. "Headed home?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. The door shut with the soft thud of a decision finishing itself. In the rear view, neon smeared into harmless colors. My phone buzzed with the same insistence as the bass I'd just abandoned. I let it hum. The city slid by. Laundromats lit like aquariums, diners promising pie, a pawn shop blinking open. I felt lighter, not happy, lighter. There's a difference men over 30 understand. The car turned onto my street. I exhaled. "Fastest route or scenic?" the driver asked. "Take the long way," I said. He smiled like he knew I meant more than streets. He talked about teaching his daughter to drive in a church parking lot, turn wide, eyes up, trust your mirrors. I listened because ordinary stories calm the nervous system. My phone lit with a message preview, video thumbnail, flashing stage lights. I flipped it face down. "Busy night?" he asked. "Was," I said. We rolled past a little league field under big lamps and a couple slow dancing to no music on their porch. The driver said, "Good night to be sober." "Best night," I said. We turned under a line of oaks into my neighborhood. where dogs patrol fences and folks still wave. The car settled at the curb outside my building. He said, "Good luck, brother," with the kind of tone men use when they recognize another man's mile marker. I tipped him, stepped out, and decided the rest of the night would be useful. Inside, the quiet wasn't empty for once. It was mine. I set my keys in the dish, turned the deadbolt, and flipped on just the kitchen light. Enough to work, not enough to invite memories. If you've ever fixed a fence after a storm, you know the order of operations matters. First, secure the gate, then clear the debris. I poured a glass of water and stood in the kind of silence that lets you hear your own pulse. No music, no texts read, no speeches rehearsed. I checked the peephole. Habit, not fear. The hallway slept. In the fridge, a sticky note I'd taken down weeks ago. No more games. Waited in the trash like a message that timed itself. I fished it out, stuck it back on the door, and smiled at the corny symbolism. Men my age don't need poetry, but we appreciate a label. I rinsed the glass, rolled my sleeves, and opened the closet where we kept the suitcases. Step 1 was ready. I pulled her luggage, the expensive set she loved for the way it looked in airport photos. I wasn't throwing or tearing. This wasn't a tantrum. It was inventory. Shirts flat, dresses folded, toiletries sealed. The rhythm calmed me. Fold, place, zip, breathe. If you've ever rebuilt a workbench after it collapsed, you know there's dignity in making lines straight again. I took the framed photo from the night we camped by the river and set it face down. Not violent, just done. The zipper teeth sang in short, satisfying runs. I matched shoes, tucked chargers, and slid a paperback she'd never finish into the side pocket. Every few minutes, my phone vibrated across the counter like a June bug against a screen door. I let it. This was my pace now. When the closet was empty of her side, I wiped the shelf, not to erase her, to make room for air. 2 suitcases stood by the door, then 3. Order does what anger can't. It finishes. By midnight, 4 suitcases made a neat row, like period marks at the end of a long sentence. I set her spare keys on top of the smallest one and checked the peephole again. Still quiet. I texted myself the building's security number in case the night got loud. Not a threat, a contingency. Men in their 30s and 40s live by contingencies. Jumper cables, extra batteries, a plan B that keeps plan A honest. I walked the place once. Stove off, windows latched, files locked. In the bedroom, I flipped the pillow, not because of her, because fresh is a signal to your nervous system. Back in the living room, I sat on the arm of the couch like a quarterback who knows the 2-minute drill is over. The suitcases waited. I waited better. Then the building's hallway woke up. Footsteps, a laugh, the metal scrape of a key against the wrong angle. The moment arrived right on time, the way trouble always keeps its own schedule. Her key found the lock, hit the deadbolt, and complained. "Jack?" she called, like the door owed her an apology. A second voice, male, cocky even through wood, muttered something about cheap buildings. The Ring camera lit the screen on my end in blue-white. I didn't move toward the door. Distance is a skill. The knock became banging, the kind that hopes neighbors will arbitrate. I kept the volume low on the TV and let the doorbell feed do the heavy lifting. Evan leaned into the frame, tried to shoulder the door like a movie extra, and bounced off with a noise I'll remember when I need a laugh. She switched to pleading. "What's wrong with the door?" The question older men know well, the one that avoids the real issue. I let the banging write its own case for 30 seconds longer. Then I picked up my phone, thumbed her name, unblocked for this purpose, and pressed call. There's more authority in calm than in volume. She answered on the second ring, breath fast. "The door's stuck," she said, skipping hello. "It's locked," I said, steady. "Well, unlock it." No. That word sounded like a new floorboard under my feet. Strong, simple, quiet. Silence on her end. Then a tremble. "Are you serious?" "Yes, you don't live here anymore." The camera showed Evan peering into the lens like it might give him a better angle. He said something about man up. I said nothing about him. "Your bags are by the door," I told her. "Have a good night." She shifted into the script. "You're overreacting. It was a joke. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself," I said, still even. "All I did was walk away." She tried one more door. "We can talk." I said, we're talking." It wasn't a debate, it was a delivery. She ran out of words, which told me more than any speech. I ended the call, not angrily, completely. The knocking started again, thinner now that the call ended. Evan squared his shoulders like he was auditioning for a hallway fight. I stepped close enough to the door that my voice wouldn't carry past it and said, "Hey Maya, tell your man to take it easy on my door before he sprains something. You'll need him to carry your bags." Silence first, the good kind. Then a muffled curse and the scrape of pride gathering itself off the welcome mat. On the camera, Evan looked down at the row of suitcases as if seeing his next workout. She said something I couldn't hear, but I recognized the tone. Negotiation with fewer chips. He tried the knob one more time like persistence might change physics. It didn't. They stood there a beat longer, indecision fogging up the lens with their breath. Then the hallway absorbed them, the sound of retreating steps, the elevator ding, the soft return of a building that wants to sleep. I let my shoulders drop. When the elevator doors shut on the camera feed, the apartment felt bigger by exactly 4 suitcases and a promise kept. I set the phone down face up. No more hiding from my own choices. The TV played a game's 4th quarter without me caring who won. I realized I was hungry and made eggs at 1 a.m., the dad move that fixes nothing and still helps. The fork against the plate sounded like a friendly clock. I washed the dish, wiped the counter, and stood still long enough to feel my own weight shift from fight to rest. Sleep would come when it wanted. Peace had already arrived. I sent one message to the building group chat. Noise resolved, all good. Name the kind of courtesy neighbors remember. Then I turned off the kitchen light and let the living room stay dim. The way houses look when their people finally relax. The suitcases waited for morning protocol. I didn't. I took the first full breath of the month and let it finish. At sunrise, I lined the bags in the hallway like a clean handoff, hers starting where mine ended. I snapped a photo for the record, texted from an anonymous app, "Your things are in the hall," and left it at that. Not petty, procedural. I brewed coffee and stood by the window while the city stretched. A neighbor walked his old lab, both of them moving like the day couldn't rush them if it tried. I thought about how endings don't always come with fireworks. Sometimes they come with a quiet checklist and a door that stays shut. By 8, the suitcases were gone. No note, no new dents in the door. Good. I grabbed my gym bag. Today, I'd coach squats and breathing and posture. The useful stuff. Before I left, I checked the peephole one last time. Clear. I locked up and headed down the stairs, feeling 10 pounds lighter in places you can't measure. The walk away wasn't dramatic. It was disciplined. That's enough. By mid-morning, the hallway was empty and the suitcases were someone else's problem. I brewed coffee, packed my gym bag, and drove to work under a sky that looked like fresh paper. First client at 8, a retired firefighter with a rebuilt shoulder. We talked about grandkids and grip strength, the kind of talk that sands down sharp edges. Inside, I was steady. Outside, I knew a storm was building. Storms don't need rain. They just need an audience. Around 10, my phone buzzed with a group text I didn't ask to be in. A paragraph, no punctuation, lots of exclamation points. He's controlling, jealous, abandoned her at a concert. The modern verdict delivered by committee. I put the phone face down and coached breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, slow as a porch swing. The old firefighter said, "Noise takes volunteers, son." I nodded. I wasn't signing up. At lunch, my screen lit again. New thread, new accusations, same chorus. The ripple had turned into a current. By afternoon, I was starring in a story I didn't recognize. I was the guy who hates fun, who locks women out, who can't take a joke. I ran the math older men know. People who've seen you handle pressure don't buy headlines. People who need drama do. A buddy from church called and asked if I was good. I said yes. He said, "Then be good." We left it there. Another friend, a bar regular type who loves a pile-on, texted, "Dude, explain yourself." I didn't. Explaining to the wrong audience is like fixing a leak with a towel. It feels helpful. It isn't. I kept coaching, wiped down benches, and let the clock be a witness. When the evening class ended, I sat in my office and wrote one rule on the whiteboard. Tell the truth once, then stop talking. My truth was a clean sentence. She crossed a line in public. I walked away. Right as I capped the marker, a message pinged from an unknown number. Video thumbnail, neon lights, her on his shoulders. I didn't forward the clip. I watched it once, alone. The way you look at an X-ray to confirm what the pain already told you. Her voice echoed through the cheap speaker, loud, proud, cruel. I saved the file and put the phone in a drawer. Evidence doesn't always belong in a parade. It belongs where it can't be twisted. I let calls go to voicemail. The ones who mattered left short messages. Here if you need me. The ones who didn't ask for context, a word that means permission to argue. A client in his 60s told me about his divorce 20 years ago. 2 piles, he said. People who help you heal. People who help you bleed. It's a simple system. I tried it. The piles sorted fast. By dinner time, a mutual friend sent a screenshot of a different thread. Sophie calling me unsafe. I leaned back, felt the first spark of anger push through the calm, then let it pass. The bar was set. I wouldn't crawl under it. The next morning, a woman I hardly knew, someone who'd been 3 rows behind us, DM'd me her phone video. Same moment, same words, different angle. "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I didn't know you. The internet can be a fire or a flashlight. I chose flashlight. I sent 2 texts to 2 people who asked in good faith. Here's what happened." That was all. No captions, no victory lap. Then I went to work and spotted a familiar shape in the mirror, my shoulders settling back into their sockets. Around noon, the smear campaign started fraying. You can't keep a balloon inflated when poked by reality. The story got quieter in the places that mattered and louder in the places that don't. I trained a 5 p.m. class, watched a grandfather PR his trap bar deadlift, and clapped like he'd won state. After I drove home under a sky loosening its belt. I thought the worst of it was over. Then I remembered Evan's face at the door. Pride hates closed chapters. I muted the loud threads, answered the quiet calls, and let the rest go. My neighbor asked if I could help him fix a crooked cabinet door. We leveled it in 20 minutes with shims and patience. "Man, thank you," he said like I'd saved his kitchen from collapse. Ordinary service resets a man. I slept better that night. No texts, no reviews, no headlines. In the morning, I helped a client adjust his belt 1 notch tighter, and we laughed about small victories. That's the thing men in my bracket understand. You fix the front steps while the big house sorts itself. Midweek, Sophie tried 1 more pass through a mutual friend. "He's making me out to be a villain." I didn't reply. I wasn't making her anything. I was making breakfast. The gym stayed busy. The noise stayed elsewhere. Peace started to feel normal again. Which is exactly when trouble knocks, because some people can't let a story end unless they write the last scene themselves. A week later, I was in the parking garage loading a set of new plates into my truck. Quiet space. Concrete cool. Radio low. The kind of Saturday chore men over 30 know well. Simple work that settles a week. Headlights swung across the wall and stopped. A sedan angled in and blocked my bumper like a chess move. Doors opened. Sophie stepped out, tears already in her voice. Evan followed, chest wide, chin high, the posture of a man who wants an audience. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't," I answered without looking up. He took 2 loud steps, the kind you hear more than see, and said my name like a dare. The garage air tasted like dust and old oil. I set a plate in the bed, closed the tailgate, and turned to face them. Hands loose, stance square, not aggressive, just ready. Every older man knows that moment, when a conversation tries to become a scene. I gave them 1 last out. They didn't take it. "Hey, she's talking to you. Show some respect," Evan said, finger stabbing the air like punctuation. "This has nothing to do with you," I told him. "Back off." He took another step into my space, breath hot with whatever courage he'd poured on himself. Sophie grabbed his sleeve. "Stop," she said, then looked at me like I was the problem. "You humiliated me," she tried. "You humiliated yourself," I replied, keeping my voice low and even. Older men understand volume is a choice. So is distance. Evan laughed, short, mean, rehearsed. "You gonna hit me, coach?" He wanted the headline more than the truth. I turned to leave, the cleanest answer I could give. That's when he shoved me, 2 hands hard to the chest, enough to slide my boots half a step on the dusty concrete. Not a bump, a shove. He did it again, louder with his body than his mouth. In the service, they call that escalation. In garages, they call it asking for it. My body answered before my brain wrote a sentence. I didn't wind up. I didn't roar. I did what training teaches. Short, straight right, elbow tucked, hips small, eyes on target. The kind of punch that doesn't look like a movie but ends the argument. Knuckles met jaw with a flat sound that garage walls remember. He folded, lights out before he hit the concrete. Not dramatic, just finished. Sophie screamed the way shock sounds. High, scared, angry at physics. Time stretched like it does when a kid falls off a bike and you know they'll be okay, but you still move fast. I stepped back, checked my hands. No split skin, just a throb where bone met bone. Breathing steady, heart steady. Older men know the goal is always to get home with the least damage possible. To you, to them, to the story. Evan groaned, rolling to his side like a man waking from a bad nap. I didn't move in. I didn't gloat. The fight was over. Now came the part that actually matters. What you do after. Sophie grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the cops," she shouted, finger trembling over the screen. "Good," I said, steady as a metronome. "When they arrive, I'll show them the security footage of him shoving me first." I pointed to the black domes mounted along the ceiling, 2 angles on our little play, plus the garage entrance cam outside. The words landed. She froze, not because I'm scary, but because evidence is. I pulled my own phone, tapped the building manager's number, and said, "We'll need tonight's footage preserved." He said, "On it," like this wasn't his first rodeo. I told Sophie to check Evan's pupils and keep him seated. I offered a cold bottle from my gym cooler for the swelling. "Oazi." She slapped it away, then picked it up when I turned. That's how anger works. Evan mumbled something brave. I let it float into the exhaust-stained air. A couple from the second floor peeked around a pillar, saw the cameras, and retreated. Calm doesn't look heroic. It looks like paperwork waiting to be done. I texted the time and location to myself, a breadcrumb trail older men keep for bad days. Then I looked at Sophie and said, "You can take him now." She blinked, expecting a lecture or a victory lap. I had neither. "We're done," I added, not for effect, for clarity. She helped Evan to his feet, wobbling toward the car in slow, embarrassed inches. They pulled out without backing into my bumper. Small mercies. When the garage quieted, I flexed my right hand, rotated the wrist, and felt the ache settle like a warning light I'd already scheduled to check. I sent one more message to the manager. "Thank you," then leaned against the truck and let the adrenaline finish its lap. Violence is a last resort. Clarity is the first. Tonight, I used both in the smallest necessary dose. I loaded the remaining plates, svois, closed the tailgate, and drove to get ice for my hand and groceries for the week. Life doesn't pause for drama. It rewards men who won't feed it. By Monday, the story started limping. A guy from our section posted his video, her on his shoulders, the line, the cheers. Another angle followed, then another. Truth doesn't sprint. It walks in through side doors with its shoes still on. The loudest critics went quiet or switched topics. A client in his 50s slapped my shoulder after class and said, "Sometimes the fish jumps in the boat." I nodded. I didn't share, repost, or victory dance. I trained, cleaned, and answered emails. The gym smelled like rubber and effort. The honest sense. Around noon, a mutual friend texted, "Okay, I didn't know." That's the closest thing to an apology you get in a group chat. Evan's bravado started leaking. Someone joked at his expense at a bar. It traveled faster than any truth ever could. I kept my routine and my mouth closed. The rumor mill can grind grain or fingers. I fed it nothing. That night, I slept without the jumpstart heart. Morning brought a different kind of knock, one that doesn't use doors. The week settled into real life. Clients told me about taxes, knees that ache before rain, kids making honor roll. Peace isn't dramatic, but it is busy. Then the apology started, not from her, not at first. Through other people. She was drunk. She's embarrassed. She never meant it that way. Men in my age bracket know this chorus. Third-party sorrow with none of the responsibility. I sent the same reply to every messenger. "Thanks for checking in. I'm good." No anger, no invitation. In the evenings, I walked the block, listened to cicadas buzz, and let my pulse match the streetlights changing. Evan, meanwhile, got smaller. A buddy heard him called shoulders by a table behind him. He left early. I didn't cheer. I stacked plates, balanced books, and let consequence do its work. When the weekend came, I grilled for myself and ate on the porch like a man whose house remembered him. The phone stayed quiet until it didn't. Her name appeared from a new number. Jack, I'm so sorry." Long paragraph, poured out heart. Blame shared with alcohol, adrenaline, the moment. Older adults know that apology by scent alone, it starts wet and dries into negotiation. I read it once. I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, another number lit up. Her friend. She's devastated. She misses you. I put the phone down and folded towels fresh out of the dryer. There's a dignity in warm cotton and straight lines that texting can't touch. The next morning, a different number. Same plea. She'll do anything. My answer stayed the same by staying absent. Boundaries are like braces. They work if you keep them on long enough. Around lunch, my buddy from church asked if I needed him to run interference. No, I said, I've got a block button. He laughed. Modern armor. Exactly. I blocked the latest number and coached the evening group through farmer carries. Eyes up, shoulders back, I said. I meant the weight, the weak, and what was coming next. People think blocking is petty. It's not. It's plumbing. Shut off the leak so the house can dry. Every time a new number spun up, I closed the valve. Not angry, just done. The gym stayed full. A granddad deadlifted 3 plates for the first time and cried. We clapped, laughed, and took a picture that actually mattered to someone. On the drive home, I realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours, the way you forget about a toothache when it finally stops. I made dinner, wiped the counter, and sat with a book I'd been pretending to read for months. Halfway through a chapter, the bell over my gym door rang in my head. Muscle memory. I looked up and saw the scene before it happened. Her pushing in mid-session, tears ready, words loaded. Predictable isn't always avoidable. Some people have to see your boundary in person. The next morning, I opened the gym early. If she came, I'd meet her outside. Clear, brief, public. The bell actually rang at 9:17. She walked in pale and rehearsed, stopping just inside like the room might reject her. I told my client to take 5 and stepped outside with her into the Texas sun. You can't be here, I said. Please, Jack, she started, voice cracking on cue. I made a terrible mistake. I didn't argue. I didn't comfort. I let the silence do its job. She filled it with familiar lines. Drunk, stressed, bad friends, bad luck. Then the pivot. But we can fix this. I kept my hands at my sides and my eyes level. No, I said, as gently as I could. We can't. She blinked like I'd spoken another language. I love you, she tried. I loved you, I answered, and watched the tense land. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't come here again, I said. This is my work. The door clicked behind me with a sound I trusted. Inside, my client adjusted his belt and asked, You good? I am, I said, and meant it. She came back 2 days later, cheeks raw, voice small, the way people sound when they realize the ground moved without them. We stood under the awning outside my gym while a summer shower rattled the gutters. I love you, she said, like the words could reverse a clock. Men my age know that love, when it's healthy, pairs with respect like boots pair with laces. You need both to walk. I let her speak. She talked fast about childhood wounds, wrong friends, too much whiskey, not enough wisdom. I didn't argue with any of it. I've made my own dumb choices. I've asked for forgiveness too. We can start over, she said, touching the edge of hope. I'll do whatever it takes. For a second, I pictured the quiet house again, the easy dinners, the Sunday market. Then I remembered the neon and the sentence I can't unhear. If start over means new boundaries and real accountability, I said, that's the only version I'd recognize. She nodded, too fast. That was my first hint. Silence held between us long enough to be honest. Then she took a breath and added the clause. There's just one thing, she said, eyes blinking like caution lights. Older adults know that line. It rarely ends with something small. You need to apologize to Evan. She said it as if we were swapping keys to make everything even. The rain actually paused. The timing was comic if it hadn't been tragic. Apologize for what? I asked, calm. For hitting him, she said. For humiliating him. He was defending me. There it was. The story where the shove doesn't count. The camera is optional, and the punch is the only part that happened. I thought of my father saying, when someone shows you their ledger, believe the math. Her ledger still billed me for her choices. I felt something hard and clean settle in my chest. Not anger, recognition. That's your non-negotiable? I asked. She nodded, relieved, like she'd solved a puzzle. She hadn't. She'd explained it. I didn't plan to laugh. It came up from the place that finally understands it's done. Not cruel, not loud, just disbelief shaking its head. She frowned. What's funny? You still think you're the prize, I said, not as an insult, as a diagnosis. You think you get to write both sides of the scorecard. Her face hardened. So that's it? That's it, I said. I won't apologize to the man who put hands on me. I won't apologize for walking away from a stage you built. And I won't renegotiate respect. The rain started again, softer. I opened the door a crack, just enough to make the boundary literal. Don't come here again. This is my work, I added. She searched my face for the old version of me, the one who would patch a hole with hope. He wasn't home. She left small under a big Texas sky. Inside, a client asked, "Everything okay?" I chalked my hands and nodded. "Perfect," I said. For the first time it was. 6 months changed more than the calendar. The gym was steady, my books balanced, and my evenings felt like clean shirts right from the dryer. I learned to cook a decent steak in a cast iron, called my mother more, fixed the loose hinge on the pantry door I'd ignored for a year. Peace looks like small chores done on time. One Friday, I took a date to a neighborhood place with good ribs and bad lighting. The kind of spot where the servers call you hun. Our hostess led us to a booth, and there she was, Sophie, in an apron, hair pulled back, eyes that had seen a few long shifts. The air thinned for a second. She froze like a deer when the porch light clicks on. I felt no anger, no triumph, just the quiet math of choices adding up. She set down waters with hands that shook. My date asked, "You two know each other?" I smiled at her, then at Sophie. "It's a long story," I said, and it finally wasn't mine to tell. Here's what I learned. The best revenge wasn't the punch. It was walking away. It was choosing silence over spectacle, dignity over audience, peace over winning. When you stop auditioning for someone else's storyline, you start living your own. My house got quieter, my meals got warmer, and the mirror looked like a man I respected. Boundaries didn't make me hard, they made me clear. Forgiveness didn't mean return, it meant release. I kept my circle small, my promises smaller, and my word big. Some days I still hear the crowd in my head. Most days I hear the click of a deadbolt I control. That sound is freedom. If you're standing where I stood, on the edge between rage and respect, choose respect. Walk. Let their stage go dark without you. The people who matter will see. And if you ever wonder whether leaving is losing, remember, endings are how better chapters begin. Mine did. Yours can. Start with one step.